Alright guys, thank you very much. Let's move on to our subtopic for today. We are going to learn on empirical and molecular formula. Now, empirical formula and molecular formula is a very direct and simple subtopic, but you guys have to pay very careful attention to details so that your calculations are perfect. That's number one. Number two is to make sure your final answers are perfect too, because final answers usually will be in whole numbers. Okay, that's the two things for you guys to know. Now, let me just emphasize that. Just hold on a moment. Let me just emphasize that empirical formula and molecular formula type of questions, at times when it comes to complicated questions, it will contribute to your question papers up to 9 and up to 10 marks. Okay, so please bear in mind this is a very important and carries a heavy load of marks. Okay, now let's move on to the definitions. Definitions are important. Why is it so? Because it can contribute 1 to 2 marks at least. Okay, please bear that in mind. Now let's go on to the definition of empirical formula. Empirical formula is the simplest ratio of atoms. Okay, highlight here simplest ratio. Please remember, simplest ratio literally means in mathematics simplification. Okay, simplification. How do you simplify things? You divide them into equal parts. Now, of atoms of different elements, which literally means it can be carbon, it can be hydrogen, it can be oxygen, it can be nitrogen, and so on. Okay, present in a molecule, which literally means there's couple of elements inside a particular molecule. Now, what do they mean by simplest ratio? Let's say they give C2H4. Simplest ratio literally means you can divide both of them, 2 and 4, with a certain number. So in this case, you can divide it by 2. So you'll get CH2. That is empirical formula. Okay. Now, let's move on to molecular formula. Molecular formula, the moment you hear the word molecule itself, since the first session, you guys know molecule is something which is big, composed of many things. Therefore, always bear in mind it's going to maintain its actual number. Okay. Now, let's have a look at the definition of molecular formula. Molecular formula is the actual number of atoms of different elements present in a molecule, which literally means in a molecule, no matter how many different types of elements, no matter what or how big the number is, you have to maintain. Now, in this case, the molecular formula is still C2H4. No simplification is acquired for you to find molecular formula. Please bear that in mind. Okay, now, there's two ways for you to actually find empirical and molecular formula. First and foremost is mass composition analysis, and secondly is combustion data. What do they mean? Number one, mass composition analysis. The moment you see the word mass, there will be definitely a couple of information talking about the mass of certain types of elements in an atom and so on. Okay. Now, combustion data. Combustion data is literally like the moment the question soalan tu bagi is in a process of combustion. The moment there's word, selalunya akan ada perkataan combustion. So the moment there's perkataan combustion macam tu, you guys have to bear in mind, okay, we have to do something sebelum mula jawab atau mula calculation untuk empirical and molecular formula. Okay, now, are you guys clear with it? If there's any questions, I'll go to the next one. Any questions, guys?
No.
All right, okay. Now, to calculate empirical and molecular formula, this is called the basic table, okay? You guys have to know the basic table. Why? Because this is the method yang paling mudah that matriculation syllabus has already simplified for you guys to know. Benda ni dah belajar kat SPM, tapi dekat matriculation is almost the same, but cases will be more complicated. Now, I'm going to show you guys. Number one is what do you actually write in this basic table, and number two, how do they mark this particular basic table. Number one, you have to label it as element. Number two, mass, you have to write in gram. You have to write the unit. Kalau tak tulis unit, salah. Okay? Kalau salah sini, the marking system salah sini, semua ni akan salah. Okay? Next, number of moles. Better for you to write mole over here, unit dia. Mole ratio, okay? Mole ratio, the moment ratio, kita dah belajar daripada sesi 1. Ratio means what? You divide something in equal parts. Fraction, kan? Same thing over here, fraction. You have to apply certain type of fraction in order for you to guys to get the empirical formula. Now, how do they mark this? Kalau benda ni, let's say element, dua-dua betul, baru satu markah. Mass, dua-dua betul, baru satu markah. Number of moles, dua-dua betul, baru satu markah. Sometimes they'll give you the marks for formula. Number of moles nak cari macam mana? Mass over molar mass. Jangan lupa, mass in grams, molar mass in gram per mole. Yeah, sometimes 1, sometimes 2 marks. Next, mole ratio, satu markah. Empirical formula, satu markah. Sini pun dah 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 markah. Here itself is already 5 marks. Lepas tu, they will ask you to find molecular formula and so on. Okay? So this is how they mark the particular basic table, which is very significant or very essential for you guys to answer questions based on empirical and molecular formula. Okay, now, any questions before we move to the third part? Any questions, guys? Pardon? Any questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Now, okay, for this subtopic, I've decided to go straight away or jump straight away into questions so that you guys really know and really understand how to actually answer these questions, okay? Now, let's have a look at the first question. This first question is mass composition analysis. Tadi kita dah belajar macam mana some of the ways to find empirical or molecular formula kan. So mass composition analysis is one of the ways. It's the first method, okay? This is the first method. Now, as usual, chemistry very particular with numbers, very particular with the words, okay? Let's have a look at this question. 3.528 gram of iron, okay. Now they're talking about 3.528 grams of iron. What is the symbol for iron?
Fe.
Yep, iron is Fe. Now, right now they're talking about iron only kan. Dulu kita belajar in the first part of first session is about isotopes and so on. Part ni tiada isotope, okay? So we are only talking about iron. Iron's mass is 3.528 gram. List it down first, okay? Was allowed to react with excess chlorine to produce 10.237 gram. Okay, maksudnya iron plus an unknown amount of chlorine, you will get 10.237 gram. Maksudnya product atau compound which is produced lah in the final step, okay? Now, kalau dia cakap dekat sini excess, you tak tahu kan what is the value. Tapi, they have already given you the mass and it's clearly stated that it contains only iron and chlorine. Jadi, secara logik, Fe dah bagi. Chlorine is what? Cl kan? Can I just minus from the total? Total tolak Fe, you dapat Cl. Kenapa? You know very well, kalau iron tambah chlorine, dia akan jadi FeCl something kan? You can be Fe2Cl something because you don't know the specific empirical or molecular formula. But right now you know Fe tambah Cl adalah 10.237. Fe dah ada. Cari apa? Cl. So, ambil total dia 7 grams minus 3.528 grams. Okay, what is the answer for Cl? Anyone? What's the answer for Cl?
$6.709.
Yep, correct. 6.709 grams. Okay, now you will get 6.709 gram. Ini adalah untuk Cl sahaja. Kenapa dah terang-terang dalam soalan? It's written here Cl and Fe only. Okay, now you dah ada mass for this. Taking a look back at here, you dah ada mass for 1 and 2. Here Fe, here Cl. for the first part, this is Fe, this is Cl. So you guys can definitely continue the rest of the parts. Okay? Now, let's move on to this question. Okay. As usual, buat table dulu. Your table is very important. Okay. The first column is your element. Kalau salah Fe, you guys tulis I ke something, gone. Memang the whole table will be wrong. 0 marks automatically. So please be very careful with details. Okay. Number 2 is your mass in grams. You guys have already found that iron's mass is 3.528 grams. Boleh tulis balik tau gram dalam ni. Just write it down. No harm done. Tapi sebab kalau korang lupa tulis dekat luar ni, dalam masih tulis still selamat. Okay. Next, chlorine, you already calculated 6.709 gram. Okay, now number of moles. How do you calculate number of moles? Number of moles tadi kita dah belajar. Number of moles is mass over molar mass, right? So mass over molar mass. You'll get 3.528. According to the periodic table, the molar mass of iron is 55.9. You get 55.9. Jangan lupa unit gram per mole. Okay, this is 55.9. And then sebelum calculate tu dulu, buat untuk Cl dulu. One by one, we go one by one. Okay, column by column. Next, you will get 6.709. Don't forget to write a formula, mass over molar mass again. 6.709 gram over, kalau ikut periodic table, your molar mass for chlorine is 35.5 gram per mole. Okay, kalau you follow specifically, it will be 35.495 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so now, that is number of moles. Sekarang, you tekan calculator, you will get the 3.528 divided by 55.9, you'll get 0.0631 mole. Okay, 0.0631 mole. Same thing over here, 6.709 gram divided by 35.5 gram per mole, you'll get 0.189 mole. Now, before we move on, I just want to tell you guys or show you guys, gram bahagi gram per mole kan, it's basically, let me just show over here, gram bahagi gram per mole. Okay, jadi in maths you cannot bahagi macam tu, you have to darab mole per gram. So can you cut the grams? Yes you can. That's why jawapan dia akan jadi mole. Okay, this is just extra knowledge. Okay, now number of moles done. Okay, now let's go for mole ratio. How to do this mole ratio? To do this mole ratio, usually orang akan ambil value yang paling kecil. Okay, 0.0631 versus 0.189. Definitely, I think it's quite logical that you guys will take 0.0631. Kenapa? Yang ini lebih kecil daripada yang ini. So, definitely 0.0631 bahagi dengan 0.0631. Over here, 0.189 bahagi 0.0631. Okay, over here, you guys will get definitely 1 here. I want you guys to calculate right now. 0.189 bahagi dengan 0.0631 dapat apa?
Three.
Yeah, 3. The answer from calculator will be 2.995 something. Tapi 5 bawa depan, you'll get 3. Because 2.995. It's quite logical, okay? You guys know round off kan? So, okay. Now, this is 3. So, automatically over here, your empirical formula is going to be FeCl3. Okay? Empirical formula. Alright? It will be FeCl3. Okay. For this example, it's quite direct. Okay? Soalan takkan keluar macam ni. Takkan pernah keluar macam ni sebab terlalu direct. Okay? Very simple for you guys to get marks. Okay. Now, how do they actually mark this? Let me just show you guys. Number 1, they'll mark over here. 1 markah. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Final answer 6. 6 marks just for this, guys. Please don't waste the marks or please don't miss the marks. Okay? Now, this is the first question. Let's move on to the second question. Second question ni Might be a bit complicated, but let's have a look, okay? Alright. Tengok soalan, you guys, I think it's quite clear that we are talking about number 1, copper, number 2, chlorine. Okay, a compound is found to contain 47.25% of copper and 52.75% of chlorine. Nampak perkataan atau this symbol, which is percentage. Tunggu dulu. Jangan straight jump into the solution. Okay? What's the question? Empirical formula. Dia suruh cari empirical formula. Now, nampak percentage, you have to write assume 100% equals to 100 gram. Kenapa? Kalau tak tulis tu kosong markah. Okay, I'm telling you right guys right now, kalau tak tulis tu kosong markah. Kalau tak percaya kan, they told here percentage, just take 47.25 tambah 52.75. You will get 100%. Sebab itu we assume 100% equals to 100 gram. Kenapa? Dalam table ni that we have learned, we are talking about mass in grams. That's why we have to write assume 100% equals to 100 gram. You can't be writing over here percentage, okay? Walaupun soalan percent, jangan tulis percentage. Grams are grams. Therefore, as usual, assume 100% equals to 100 gram. That is step number 1. Tanpa ni kosong markah guys. Okay. Number 2, you write down again. Mass of copper. Copper Cu kan. 47.25 gram. And then mass of chlorine is Cl kan. Equals to 52.75 gram. Okay, these are the two things. Now, as usual, let's solve them with the table. Okay. Number 1, element. Don't forget, element salah, everything's gonna go wrong. Element, you're gonna get Cu here and Cl here. Now, next is the mass. Units, guys. Don't forget the units. I emphasize over here. Copper is 47.25 and over here is 52.75. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the number of moles. Again, unit, don't forget. Okay. You're going to get 47.25. Don't forget formula, yeah. I'm skipping the formulas about touch ke tempat. You guys don't ever forget to write mass over molar mass. Mass in grams, molar mass in gram per mole. Baru buat 47.25 gram. Bahagi dengan kalau copper periodic table 8, 63.6. 63.6 gram per mole. Tunggu dulu. Right over here dulu. Make sure everything is right first. Here 52.75 gram. Don't forget to write formula mass over molar mass. Over 35.5 gram per mole. Okay, sekarang baru calculate. Tahu kenapa? You know why I do this? Because kalau sini kan, you guys have already calculated. Okay, here if you calculate, you'll get 0.74 mole. Okay, just imagine you guys terlupa key in whatever and you guys are rushing and answer dekat calculator tu, korang tekan answer and equals, the answer is 0.74 again and it's gone. Everything is gonna go off. Okay, sebab itu buat satu-satu. Left dulu, lepas tu right. Lepas tu left balik, lepas tu right. Then you guys know, okay, that's the flow I've always been doing. Let's go with the flow. Okay, don't ever forget your flow. Next, you get over here 1.49 mole. Okay, now always remember, kalau jawapan dia dalam calculator 1.996, you can make it into 2. Tapi kalau jawapan dia 1. Like just now, 1.493, you have to maintain 1.49. You can't be rounding it off into 1.5. Tak boleh, okay? That is chemistry. Now, let's move on to mole ratio. How do you calculate mole ratio? As usual, ambil yang paling kecil. 0.74 bagi 0.74. I think it's quite logic over here. You will get 1. Here, 1.49 bagi 0.74. Okay guys, what is the answer over here? 1.49 bagi 0.74 dapat berapa?
2.
Okay, 2. Alright, so I think it's quite clear over here that your empirical formula, remember, empirical formula is CuCl2. Kalau dia suruh cari molecular formula kan, you guys still have to write empirical formula is CuCl2 sebab table ni untuk empirical formula, bukan molecular formula. Right, empirical formula CuCl2. Lepas tu luar table. Luar table baru you guys write molecular formula is CuCl2. Okay? Any questions before we move on to combustion analysis?
Do we have to state the mass or kalau buat table je terus okay je?
You mean mass dekat sini or
Yang
mass?
mass of Cu equal to 47.25. Yang
Oh,
dekat sebelah
yang ini
yang
ke?
luar table. That one.
It's best for you to write because sometimes kan kalau korang lupa lupa tulis, you guys just imagine accidentally ambil percent ni, then you guys know what will happen, right? So yeah, this is just precautionary step in case. But yang ini wajib. Tanpa ni tiada markah. Okay?
Alright, thank you.
Alright, thank you. Any more questions, guys? Okay. I guess let's move on to combustion data. Now, combustion data. Before we move on to question, let me just intro to you what's combustion data. Combustion data is basically something which is burning. Dalam general knowledge, or last time when we learn pendidikan jasmani and all that stuff kan, we have learned the triangle kan, you have to use fuel, oxygen, and something to burn, okay? So that you can provide basically fuel, oxygen, and heat so that you can make a flame lah basically kan. So combustion over here, same concept. The fuels and all that, no, we are not looking at it right now. We are talking about combustion. Kalau tiada oxygen, combustion would not happen. You guys know that very, very well. So no oxygen, no combustion. Literally means dalam soalan-soalan pasal combustion data atau combustion analysis, tengok sini, combustion, ada perkataan combustion, snap, your mind should say, okay, ada oxygen dalam ni. Okay, tapi mana oxygen tu? That is the problem for us. Okay, now let's move on to this question. How do we solve this kind of question? Number one, look at the questions and values properly. 0.30 gram of an unknown organic compound X. Tunggu. Write down first. Compound X. Okay. Compound X ni apa? Compound X ni produk kepada segala-gala combustion yang sudah berlaku. Okay. So this is 0.30 gram. That is number one. Number two, give 0.733 gram of carbon dioxide. Compound X, combustion happened and stuff, it gave out 0.733 grams of carbon dioxide. Please don't ever write carbon dioxide equals to 0.733 grams because you guys will confuse yourself. Tulis CO2. We want to handle or meddle with elements. Now, we are not talking about carbon dioxide as a gas. We are talking about carbon dioxide, specifically element CO2. Okay, that's number two. Number three, and 0.30 gram of water. Now, H2O kan water, 0.30 gram. Okay, now, if you guys have a look at this properly, how would you actually process, analyze, and answer these kind of questions? You guys know very well. Dua-dua belah sini ada oxygen, sini pun ada oxygen. So it's very difficult for you guys to calculate oxygen. So we take the alternative part. Calculate carbon. Macam mana nak calculate carbon? Kita tak tahu mass of carbon, tapi we know molar mass of carbon. Molar mass of carbon is 12 gram per mole. So, dalam sini, carbon ada 12 gram per mole. Guna ratio balik. Over CO2, basic maths. One element out of the total element. 12 gram bahagi O2. O is 16. 16 plus 16 tambah 12. You get 44 gram per mole. Okay. Lepas ni buat apa? Darab 0.733 grams. Ini akan memberi jawapan kepada how much carbon we have in the organic compound. Okay, so what is the answer for carbon? Anyone? What's the answer for carbon?
Zero
0.2.
Okay, 0.2 grams. Okay, now itu carbon. Sini H2O. You guys know O jangan sentuh. We are talking about H2 now. H, hydrogen ada dua. So H2, same thing over here. H is 1 gram per mole. Dia punya molar mass. We are talking about 2 of H. Maksudnya 2 gram per mole. Bahagi dengan berapa? 2 tambah 16. Tambah the O punya gram per mole. So you'll get 18 gram per mole. So you'll get 18 gram per mole. Darab dengan apa? We have learned 0.30 gram. What will you get here?
Zero point 0.0333.
Okay, 0.033, sorry, 333 grams. Keep it in, okay, untuk chemistry kan, keep it in 3 decimal places, not 3 significant figures, okay? 3 decimal places, ni 1, 2, 3 sudah. Okay, 0.333. Okay, now, if you guys realize 0.0333 plus 0.2 doesn't make up 0.30 gram kan? What does this mean? Balance 2 adalah oxygen. That is the meaning of combustion analysis. That is how you calculate oxygen. So to calculate mass of oxygen, you have to just take 0.3 tolak 0.2 tolak 0.33. You will get your answer, which is, anyone? Guys, anyone?
0.067.
Yep, 0.067 grams. Okay. That is how you calculate the mass of oxygen. Sebab dua-dua sini ada oxygen. So don't ever touch. Jangan simply touch. When there's only one element of each side, macam carbon sini satu kan. Sini pun H2, satu je. We are talking about H, we are talking about C. Oxygen dua-dua ada. So don't simply touch oxygen. Okay, that's number one. Number two, realize or analyze very well what is the total for the whole compound. And number three, make sure you guys write mass of carbon equals to mass over molar mass. I'm sorry. Mass of carbon equals to, then show the calculation. Same thing over here, mass of hydrogen equals to right here. Okay, dekat sini, mass of hydrogen, make sure you write mass of hydrogen, comma, H2 tau. Kenapa? Sebab kita guna 2 gram per mole, not 1 gram per mole. Kalau 1 gram per mole is only H. But right now we are talking about H2. That's why we have to write mass of hydrogen, comma, H2. Same thing over here. We are talking about CO2 and H2O, oxygen. Oxygen is diatomic kan? Same as hydrogen, diatomic. Benda tu korang akan belajar masa periodic table nanti. Okay? Same thing over here, mass of oxygen, comma, O2. Okay, sekarang you guys have mass for this, mass for this, mass for this. Now, move back to the table yang kita dah belajar. You guys have all these things. Elemen dah ada. Elemen ada apa tadi? C, H dengan O. Same thing over here. C, H, you guys will have another extra column, O. And then you have the mass. Just put in the mass, number of moles, jangan lupa unit, and formula, mass over molar mass. Get the answer, mole ratio bahagi dengan yang paling kecil. Okay? Then you'll get your answer. Alright, okay. Now, for this part, I am also going to explain to you guys mole ratio. Okay. Mole ratio. Okay, kadang-kadang mole ratio you guys dah bahagi kan. Let's say you guys bahagi 3 and then here 2. Okay, confirm bahagi 2 kan? Bahagi 2. Sini akan jadi 1. Sini akan jadi 3 divided by 2, 1.5. Okay? Macam ni, kalau case dia macam ni, if the number of this is not extremely close. Extremely close maksudnya apa? It has to be 1.993 or 1.9 something. Okay, plus minus 0.1. Dia kena plus minus 0.1. Kalau dia tak plus minus 0.1, what you should do? Darab 2. Darab with any whole number in order for you guys to turn this decimal into whole number. So kalau darab 2, dapat apa? 3. Darab 2, dapat apa? 2. Macam tu. Okay? Please bear in mind mole ratio, that is how it works. Kalau dia 1.7, don't simply put it as 2. 1.7, keep on trying a number so that you guys can darab untuk dapat whole number. That is the system for matriculation. Kalau you guys dapat mole ratio macam ni, decimal, the process pendarapan untuk dapat whole number akan dapat markah juga. Okay? Please bear that in mind. Any questions for this before we move on to the next part?
No question.
Alright, thank you. Okay, now I'm going to explain to you guys how to determine molecular formula. All along we have been learning on how to determine empirical formula. Now, macam mana nak actually determine molecular formula? Okay, let's have a look. Kalau nak determine molecular formula, the mass of molecular will be given. Selalunya dia akan bagi, let's say MR equals to 115 gram per mole ke, like that, in the question itself. Maksud dia molecular mass needs to be given. Automatically you see molecular mass given, I think you guys can click in your mind, okay, I think lepas cari empirical formula, dia orang akan suruh cari molecular formula. Sebab tu dia bagi molecular mass. Molecular mass of the whole compound. Maksud dia empirical formula darab, empirical formula kan simplest ratio. Let's say macam ni, dia kan simplest ratio. Dia kena darab dengan certain number, and that certain number is called n, untuk dapatkan value of n. Okay? So basically, dia bagi MR ni untuk substitute sini for you guys to get the number or value of n. Okay. How does this thing work? Let's have a look. Sekarang korang dah buat table and so on. Dah habis table tu and so on, empirical formula. You guys get the answer CH2O. Okay, ini paling simple kan? Dah buat simplest ratio. Okay. So, let's say the mass is 60 gram per mole. Molecular mass. Okay, dia bagi molecular mass 60 gram per mole. And you guys melalui table sudah cari empirical formula. So, what you guys should do is tulis formula ni. The formula is empirical formula bracket n di luar, kecil bawah tau, kecil n bawah equals to molecular formula. Atau you guys can write molecular mass. Best to write molecular mass lah. Okay. Now, what you guys should do. Sini pun you guys can turn into molecular mass, you know. Okay. What you guys should do. What should you guys do? Okay. Ambil CH2O ni, masukkan dalam sini. Kenapa? Itu adalah empirical formula. Darab dengan N. N nak cari 60 gram per mole is given over here. Okay. Then, macam mana nak dapat? C is 12 kan? Semua ni must change into your molar mass. So, sini C 12. H 1, tapi dia ada 2 H. So, darab 2. Tambah O. O is 16 gram per mole. Tambah semua bracket. Make sure maintain bracket. Ada N dekat bawah ni. Equals to 60. Lepas tu, what should you guys do? Total of these, just push it that side. You'll get a value of N. Okay, let's just assume the value of N is 3. Okay. Next, we don't stop there. We have to complete the question. Sebab soalan tanya, what is the molecular mass? What should you do? Same thing. Benda ni kan, formula ni, kali ni tiada yang ini. Kali ni only this side. Put over here. Empirical formula CH2O. Only the left hand side. Remember, lepas cari value of N, only the left hand side is the one you gotta use. Darab dengan N. N dah dapat. NU adalah 3 CH2O. So you get 3 over here. Okay? So what you'll get? C3H6O3. Okay, that is molecular formula. How do you know whether it's molecular formula or not? Sebab terang-terang dekat sini boleh tengok, it is not the simplest ratio. 3 boleh bagi 3, 6 boleh bagi 3, 3 pun boleh bagi 3. You'll get CH2O. CH2O adalah empirical formula. Sekarang dia tanya molecular formula. Molecular formula is basically the complicated version lah, to make sure that sticks in your mind. Molecular formula, complicated version. Empirical formula, just the simplest version. Okay? Now, any questions before we move on to the last part?
No question.
Alright, thank you. Now, the last part and the last ever part which always confuse students. Okay. Now, part ni, please pay attention. Sebab part ni memang penting sangat. Now, let's say dia punya soalan, dia bagi HCl. You guys know HCl is hydrochloric acid kan? Tapi, HCl can also be pure. Pure maksudnya tiada apa-apa yang ditambah. HCl, let's say dia bagi perkataan aqueous hydrochloric acid. The moment there's perkataan aqueous, which means diorang tambah H2O dalam. Maksudnya dalam calculation empirical formula, you have to add H2O. So, your table akan jadi CL. Okay? H. Ni pun ada, ni pun ada. Oxygen. Nah, it's not only HCl tau. Ada oxygen juga. Kenapa? Dia tambah aqueous. Aqueous maksudnya tambah water. Next, itu satu. Yang kedua, kalau dia cakap solid, let's say dia bagi solid carbon lah. Okay? Let's say carbon or whatsoever lah, whatsoever element. Dia maksud dia tak tambah H2O, which means in your table, carbon je. Macam tu je. Tak boleh tambah H, tak boleh tambah O. Because kenapa? It's terang-terang kat sini solid. Okay? Next, kalau dia bagi perkataan molten. Molten maksudnya you melt something. When something melts, it literally means dia tak tambah air. Okay? Maksudnya benda tu solid, korang letak dekat luar, dia jadi liquid atau dia jadi gas. Itu je. So ini liquid lah, molten. Okay? Dia tak tambah air, you tak tambah apa-apa. Which means it still stays as its original formula. Okay? Tiada tambah apa-apa. Please bear that in mind. 3 ni penting, it will confuse you always. Alright guys, any questions for this session? This is the session for today. Questions will be tougher than whatever we have seen because basics are very important. The questions might look tough, but without the basic, you guys can't do anything. But with the basics, you guys can solve any questions no matter how tough they are. Alright guys, any questions?
No.
Alright, if there's no questions, I think we'll stop the recording right over here. Okay,